Welcome to Threshold Stories, a podcast about people crossing thresholds, one story at a time. I'm your host, Jeff Gora. I'm an author, athlete, and coach, and adventure travel guide. This show explores topics like fitness, overcoming adversity, faith and science, travel, and my favorite, what it takes to be a Christian author in the 21st century. Hey everybody, podcast 120. This is the third in a three-part series on addictions. The first piece you saw was Casey telling his story. The second one was Tom telling his story. And each of those, as you heard, had a drug addiction component to it, alcohol addiction, and a sexual addiction component to it. I'm going to go outside on this third episode of those three addictions and hit what I'm going to call the largest addiction in the world today. And it takes three unique topics to blend together before I can make my claim. So here we go. Podcast 120, Soren Kierkegaard, Psalm 46, and cell phones. So let's start with the first one, Soren Kierkegaard. He was a 19th century thinker. He was Danish, and he gets a title of father of existentialism. So most people are overwhelmed by hearing that, and I'm going to make it easy very soon, I promise. But he died when he was only 42 years old. Most of the time when you think of somebody who gets the title of thinker or father of, you perceive at some point in their lives they were an old man or an old woman, right? Most people don't possibly consider somebody who dies young to be the father of anything or the mother of anything. They typically pass away. It's considered a tragedy. They died young, so sad. I can go on and on. Well, Kierkegaard got a title as being a great thinker, and I feel like I can break down why he was considered a great thinker pretty quickly, because the ideas that he created in the 19th century, although they were pretty wild back then, they're basically the core of the definition of a lot of the culture in the United States. Here's what Kierkegaard said. He was an individualist. So to translate what that means, if your parents made you go to church, they can't make you believe in God. So as an individualist, Kierkegaard would say, you're on your own to make that critical choice about existence or non-existence, about the idea that there's a source of right and wrong that's bigger than humanity. He would say you could be forced to go to an art museum by a teacher, but nobody can force you to decide whether or not something is inspirational or beautiful or not. And he also felt, if I could take it even a step further, that regret is part of the human experience no matter what choice you pick. So he would say, you will very much get married and regret it at some point. And you will choose to be single, and at some point in your life, you too will regret that. So your very existence creates these moments where you've made a choice, and the choice that you made, although was the right choice, you still have moments when you wished you hadn't made the choice. Even if it's only a fleeting moment, you still have it. So Kierkegaard today would be opposed of anything state-provided that tears away from your ability to think and create ideas on your own. He would hate state-provided healthcare. He would hate unemployment insurance. He would hate state-controlled religion. And that's what he was fighting in the 19th century. State-controlled religion was a big deal. Kierkegaard was committed to this idea that if you don't do the hard work, if you don't do everything that's necessary to discover meaning, you won't have any. He said, in order to understand something, you really have to tear it apart and get down to its basic levels. So I feel like I need to do that with Psalm 46. So Psalm 46, verse 10, is relatively common amongst all three of the world's main religions. So in English, it gets translated as this: be still and know that I am God. So in the original Hebrew, it's only 5 words. So let's do the hard work of tearing this apart, Kierkegaard style. You have 2 verbs at the very start of it. Then you have a connecting word, what we call a conjunction in English. And then 2 words at the end. Both of them are nouns. So let's go through it. It's harpu, uru. So that's 2 verbs. And let's talk about harpu and uru, where they came from. The first one is the word Rapha. It's a conjugation of the verb Rapha. So some people hear of Jehovah Rapha, and they say, well, what does that mean? Well, Jehovah is, of course, another word for God. And Rapha means rest or relaxation. So when they say, I want to go into Jehovah Rapha, that means I want to go into a state of rest. Specifically, though, it means stop striving. Stop trying to excel and achieve on your own. Instead, relax. Another translation is to sink. So think of going into a beanbag chair. When you sit down, if somebody commanded you to sit down and sink into a beanbag chair, they would look at you and say, hey,
Harpu, beanbag chair. Go settle and go sink into that beanbag chair. So that's the first part of that claim. The second one is this word udu. So udu is a translation from the verb yada. And if you've ever had any Jewish friends, Hebrew friends, you've probably heard them say yada, yada, yada. So I went shopping. There was all kinds of stuff in the store, but nothing I wanted, yada, yada, yada. So we went home. So yada, yada, yada means he knows, or I know. Well, not really I know, but he says he knows. It's matter of factual that the knowledge is there. It's like it's intuitive, right? So if you looked at 2 oranges, you would say, yeah, that's 2 oranges, yada. That's 2 oranges, yada. I mean, that's kind of the equivalent of saying it's a knowledge, a know thing. So you stack those together, it says, be still, rest, sink, take it easy. Just know. There's no work involved. You have to just know. And then the rest of the sentence. Ki, or chi. In this case, that means, because, or that. That's a condensing things. And the last 2 words at the end, Anochi Elohim. So Anochi is the formal way of saying the word I. It's like your highness, but directed at yourself. And Elohim is one of the many words for God, a plural word. If Elo is a singular, Elohim is plural. So it's the complete God, all God. So to tear that apart, he would say, just be still and know something. Stop trying to seek out. And the thing that I want you to know is that I am God. All right, so let's connect all that together to cell phones and where I'm going is. My conviction is that the cell phone has taken away our capacity to do the hard work to learn something. Some of you are listening to this podcast and you're passively ingesting the translations from Hebrew that I did for you. What the point I'm trying to make is that's prolific throughout everywhere as we go. People see something, they have an experience, and they all of a sudden connect with it. They feel that there's an identity with it or an individualization with it, or even worse, they conclude that there's meaning with it. Like, I'm going to pick up random sports, the Buffalo Bills. There are people who, they go to the games or they watch the games on TV and they connect and they say, that's my team. Their success and failure creates meaning in my life. Well, Kierkegaard would say, you are lying to yourself like there's no tomorrow. You never did any hard work. You've certainly never gone to any of the practices. You haven't washed their laundry if you're even on the support team. The odds are you've probably never done anything other than act in the role of a spectator or a bystander throughout the whole thing. He says, that's not meaning. That's some sort of decoration that is upon your personality that isn't got a value outside of you no matter what happens. Like when you die, that dies with you. There's nothing from future generations that's going to come from that will all claim to be positive. And the buzzword there is all. His recommendation was to go out and find something to do hard work. Well, when I pick up a cell phone to look something up, or if I pick up any tool and I try to fight to try to figure out what's being said, and I find myself on YouTube or something like that, I'm letting somebody else do the hard work and claim somehow, some way that has a lot of meaning for me. More than once, I've had to repair an appliance. And I'll open up a YouTube channel and type in, broken washing machine, type in the model number, and eventually I'll find some video on how to do it. Well, guess what? I'm going to forget what I saw in that video after I've fixed the washing machine. But there have been times, specifically, I had to replace the electronics in a relatively old washing machine, meaning 30-year-old washing machine. And it took me more than a day to figure it out. But by God, I now know it. If I had that washing machine in front of me again, I could tell you right now, right off the bat, there's 2 yellow wires, a black wire, a white wire, and a green wire, and I could tell you where they all go and what their roles are. Watching a YouTube video that says, take this part out, buy a new one, put this one back in, that didn't create much of a meaning. It solved my problem, but that's about it. So my recommendations from all this addiction stuff is, you're addicted to taking the shortcut to getting to answers to your problems. You're addictive to finding the easy way instead of doing the hard work and therefore creating the meaning. But even worse than that, you're addicted to doing something. That first part of be still and know that I'm God, that harpu, you're addicted to avoiding that. You want to take your cell phone with you when you go to the bathroom. When you go for a walk, you get on the phone with a friend or something like that and talk and walk with your earbuds in the entire time. This idea of being still. Now, still doesn't necessarily have to do with the lack of motion, but it does mean to have to do with a simplicity of living about yourself. So my recommendations are very simplistic. Spend some time being still. Spend some time getting to know God. And do some hard work. Get to the bottom of some things. Listen to people who are completely opposed to you and figure out what it is that they're basing all their opinions on. It's really good stuff. I have a strong pro-life approach to abortion, but a lot of that came from thoughtful and repetitive listening to people who are on the other side and make sure I truly understood their arguments, where they came from. God bless you guys. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening. Jeff's books can be found at all major outlets. If you'd like to participate in any of our adventure travel, visit thresholdacademy.com and click on the links. If you wish to hire Jeff as a speaker, please visit jeffgora.com and fill out the form.